Are you disciplined? Are you doing the right things that are preparing you for that launch?
Welcome back to Engineering Pack Pod for part 2 of our conversation with Brooke Huckabee. So welcome back, Brooke.
Thank you. Excited to be
We're
here.
happy you're here. Last week we talked about your 7 C's, and these all come as a leader. You share these with your team. And I was curious, how large is your team?
I have 3 teams within kind of the revenue enablement division. Each one is around 10 people, so I would say around 30.
Oh, that's a big group. Okay, lots of people and lots of challenges. And we talked about clarity, consistency, credibility, confidence, connection, continuous learning. We got to hyphenate that one. And then celebration. And that's wonderful. So if you missed last week, go back and catch up, because today we're going to move into the next section of some of these pearls of wisdom emails. It sounds like you might need to write a book someday with all these emails.
So I probably have maybe 70-ish now.
It needs to happen.
There are people out of NC State that are into publishing.
And it's almost like it's this inspiration, like you said, on a Friday, people get something that you're thinking about, whether it's driving to karate practice and something hits you and you share it. And one of your emails is about the notion of control, which I relate to a lot because I love to be in control and there are many things I need to let go. So give me some advice, friend.
So there are a lot of things not in our control in general, whether that's in your personal or your professional life. When those moments happen, it's really important for you to recognize that that is out of your control. It's very easy to get angry and upset about something, and those emotions are valid. But what you're in charge of is the expression of that. And for me as a leader, that's in front of my teams. And I need to make sure that I am in charge of my reaction, in charge of my behavior, and in charge of how I handle the situation in the best way possible for my team. And you can take a minute. That doesn't mean that you can't have your moment, but recognizing the difference between the two and composing yourself and being in charge of your response.
I've heard this notion, and this may be more in my personal life when I get revved up, because certain people, your loved ones know how to push your buttons, this notion of the pause. And I love this in relationships, but it also equals in work. Like if something happens with you and your boss and you feel in your body the anxiety bubbling up and you want to write the email immediately, taking the pause.
Yes, the power of the pause. It's one of those things that it's just a must. You need to make it a habit, especially when your emotions are high. Sometimes for me, that means not sending it that evening and just sleeping on it and then rereading it the next morning and seeing how you feel about it, because we can get very amped up in the moment. And my friends and family now say, I need to get my mind right, because sometimes I can be nervous about something or scared about something or worked up or angry about something. And in that pause moment, I've got to get my mind right, and then I can handle it. But that mind right is that pause.
I completely agree. I think I say things like, my nervous system is overwhelmed right now. And people around me know, okay, let mom go take her walk with the dog, kind of take 100%, take the deep breaths. And it is biological what's happening in you. And I think I heard a quote, I might butcher it, but Viktor Frankl, Holocaust survivor, said, between stimulus and response, there is a space. And in that space is our power. And, he was being tortured. I mean, the worst possible things. How do you realize that you still have power in that moment? So I like that notion that you have some agency there by being in charge. Exactly. Ooh, that's a good one. All right, let's go to another one of your emails that I'm really curious about. You talk about this arrow analogy about what happens when we fall down. Can you explain that one?
Yes. So I used this one recently because someone on my team has been training for something outside of work, and there was an injury, and she's been training for something for a really, really long time and was coming up on the event, and rightfully so, very upset. Again, control and in charge. And so in that moment, the injury is out of your control. The injury has happened. How can you take charge of that and start working on the downtime to improve when you are back and up and running? So to me, that's kind of the analogy of the arrow. In that moment, there was tension, there was pressure, the arrow's being pulled back. Maybe the arrow fell on the ground. The injury happened, it fell down. You've got to pick yourself back up. The tension is on the arrow, it's being pulled back. And then in that moment, the power of the pause, let's ramp up because it will launch you forward and ultimately launch you even further than you may have originally, because you do have the time to reconnect, to better understand your why. Because in those moments when you're upset, especially when you're looking forward to something, sometimes you forget the why. Why am I doing this? Because you've been working so hard to get to that point where you're actually ready to go. And a lot of us forget the why behind it. And we always need to start with the why. And so in those moments as you're being pulled back and you're pressured, those emotions come in. Now I'm understanding why this is important to me, why I care, and then we can start building as we're preparing for launch.
I want to get a little more clarity on this one. So, pulling back to move forward, would you mind sharing something in your own life where you talked about your employee, but a time where this analogy really helped you?
Yes. So, well, I have an injury analogy as well. As you know, like dance and fitness are really big in my life, and I tore my ACL. And so I was down for a significant amount of time. But if I think about something in the workplace, I have two moments in my career where I would say I had big transitions. And both of those, I had to pull back a little bit in order to launch. And what I mean by that is my first one, I was in the marketing organization, and I was being my true authentic self, the values that are meaningful to me, creativity, passion, and all of this, I was putting into my work, and it was noticed. And someone from the fraud division noticed a project that I had been working on and asked me to move over to product marketing, which is a more technical type of marketing. And I was scared. I was really scared. And I actually said, I'm not qualified for it. And he said to me, I can teach you the skills, I can teach you the technology. I cannot teach passion and creativity. Now, how that relates to the arrow is I was doing great in marketing. I felt like I was successful. I was being recognized for my creativity, but I go into this other world and I was knocked back a little bit, as far as like feeling good about myself and feeling confident in why I was there and the work that I was doing. And so in that moment, I really was pulled back because I had to start from scratch. I had to start learning a whole new job role. I had to learn the ins and outs of a product that I was unfamiliar with and be able to actually write about it and market it in a new way that I've never marketed before. And so that to me was a pullback. It was a reset of, okay, why am I here? What am I doing? And how can I use my values and my skill sets to prepare for this launch? And it really was a launch of a product, but it did ultimately build up to me being able to manage that team and then ultimately move into the enablement role, which was the other big transition for me.
Yeah, those two are great ones because our life shifts all the time. And I call it a life quake. It's almost like you get shaken up with the ACL injury or the change in this role. And you have to have a time to grieve the loss of whatever you are giving up and that identity. I'm similar to you. I played soccer and I tore my labrum, and my doctor was like, "You're done playing soccer." And that was after 40 years. I was like, okay, I can go on to other things. But there was a messy middle. And I think just normalizing that happens for people when these transitions occur. How do you get through the messy middle? What grounds you before that new chapter starts with the new identity?
Oh boy, relying on the people that are in my close, tight circle is one. Just being surrounded by the people who I know want to see me succeed. Because in those moments, it's the whole imposter syndrome. You think, well, I'm not going to succeed at this. I told you, I literally said I'm not qualified for this job. I don't even understand the role. And so in those moments, being surrounded by the people that say, you can do this. We're here for you. We can pick up what you have to drop right now to focus on this. We can take care of the errands or the this or the that. You focus on building this skill set right now because that's the direction that you're going, and that power of the pause. And when the arrow is pulled back, you have the opportunity to direct it somewhere and to be in control of where it's going, how far it's going, how fast it's going, and being able to really hold yourself accountable in that moment for exactly where you want to take this. And so I'm grounded in the people around me, but I'm also grounded in discipline and knowing what I need to do in that moment. Those are not the glamorous moments. In the last episode of this, we talked about credibility and all of these things, and we tend to celebrate those big moments, and it's really about the small moments that build up to it. And that's where this whole discipline thing comes in. And I was thinking about it earlier today. It was actually my Friday email today, not to get off topic of this, but my son recently received his second-degree black belt. One of the values in karate is integrity, meaning, are you doing the right thing even when people aren't watching? So in those moments when you're being pulled back and people aren't watching, and it's not the glamorous celebrations, it's not walking across the stage for your diploma, are you disciplined? Are you doing the right things that are preparing you for that launch? Because if you're not, the arrow may not go as far as you wanted it to go. But the discipline, the small moments, I think it was Abraham Lincoln that had a quote, can't remember the exact words. It was about, you have to stay focused and disciplined on your long-term goal rather than what you want in the moment. Because with school, and I mean, even now, there might be a party coming up. It might be raining outside and you don't want to walk to class, so you might want to skip it in those moments. But you've got to put the longer term goals before that. And you have to be disciplined enough to recognize that that is more important than this moment right now. And the integrity of doing the right thing along the way to get you to those bigger goals.
Wow. When people aren't watching, what are you doing? What decisions are you making? And that discipline piece, like you said, it's not super fun and glamorous, but that's where you roll up your sleeves and it helps you move forward in the arrow.
Yeah, and those are the quiet moments. They're not the ones full of the celebrations and the applauses, but sometimes success lives in those quiet moments, and integrity lives in those micro moments that are building up to the bigger goals, those leading indicators before you get to that longer term achievement.
Very, very insightful, Brooke. Now, when we say leading, I know you've also contrasted that with lagging. Can you share a little bit about your thoughts on that?
Sure. So in business, we talk about when we're looking at measuring success, every project, someone will always chime in, well, how are we going to measure success? And in those moments, we think about leading and lagging indicators. And so the other weekend, I was sitting around thinking about what my next Friday email was going to be and thought about this idea of what if we apply the concept of leading and lagging indicators to our professional development? Because a lot of times we focus on the end goal, the lagging indicator. I want to lose this amount of weight. I want to get my diploma with this GPA. I want to learn French, so when I study abroad, I'm fluent. Lagging indicator. The leading indicators to get there are those micro moments through discipline and integrity that you're doing along the way. A lot of times we don't measure that, and those are those when I talk about needing to celebrate the small wins. How many hours a week are you putting into your homework or working out or whatever is that applies to your longer goal? How many hours are you doing that? Are you looking for the people who are going to support you along the way, and are you meeting regularly with them? Whatever the end goal is. Are you drinking enough water? Are you working out? Are you this, that, and the other? But making sure that you're measuring those, one, to celebrate and to make sure that you aren't going to kind of fizzle out, because it's easy to fizzle out if you're not celebrating the small wins to get to that longer one. But just measuring. You can't manage what you aren't measuring. So that's kind of the concept behind leading and lagging.
And you talked about having these 30 employees that look up to you as a leader. How do you coach them if they're getting discouraged and the results aren't happening as fast as they want?
Regular check-ins is the key for any leader. Got to make sure that you understand what's important to them, what their values are, where their strengths are. I tend to focus on strengths rather than weaknesses. What is it that you're passionate about? How does that map to your skill set? And then, what projects are there? Because we can't always do the projects that we like, but if you do map as closely as you can, then you're going to get more job satisfaction and more output and impact in those roles. But continuing to follow along. I meet with my direct reports regularly, but I also have skip meetings, which means the next layer of employees for regular check-ins as well, because I want to make sure that they're healthy, happy, and safe in the workplace, and I'm not going to know that unless I'm checking in. And in those moments is when these questions come up. Well, I don't feel like I did this. Well, let's talk about that. And be willing to accept feedback and apply that feedback so the next time we talk, we can talk about the progress and those micro moments of achievement along the way.
I want to jump into one of the words you said, which was happy, because one of the things I've done is taught a class, and I called it practicing happiness specifically because we're not happy all the time, and sometimes we're having bad days, as we talked about in the last episode. So tell me your thoughts on that. When you say one of your jobs is to make sure your employees are happy, what do you do when they're not happy?
It's okay to not be happy, first of all. I'm not expecting them to be happy all of the time, but I want them to feel like they are in an environment where they can be happy. And again, there's a lot of factors that are out of our control, but the things that I'm in charge of are making sure that I'm giving them projects that are engaging and that are helping them not only build skills, but feel successful. Along the way, I'm also looking for opportunities to provide them feedback so that we can work on continuous learning and skill building. All of those things in the earlier episode we talked about, that's how we were building confidence. And ultimately, confidence, happiness, those positive attributes that we want in the workplace, they kind of build on one another. When someone's having a bad day, I will typically say, hey, it looks like something's off. You don't have to share it with me, but know that I'm here if you want to talk about it. And if you need a day, if you need a mental health day, I want you to take that, because your health, your happiness is more important than this task that may have a deadline of this afternoon. Let's talk about how the team can rally together, because when you have built a culture on trust, empathy, inclusion, they know that I mean it when I say that. I'm not going to frown upon the fact that they need to take a minute. So
I wish for our listener to, as they pick their future boss, to find someone like Brooke Huckabee. You sound incredible. I love all the things you've said. And I'm at the last question. This has flown by. So what we're going to do now is, our time machine has just arrived. Are you ready to open up and see what's inside there? We're going to open the door, and guess who has just stepped out? It is the Brooke Huckabee of 2046. So we are adding 20 years, and she is here to tell you something that you need to hear right now in the year 2026. What would you love to hear from your older, wiser self?
I think I would love to hear if I'm on the right track. I just came back from a conference, and the keynote speaker said something that resonated with me. He said, when I die, I don't want to be full of potential. I want to be empty. So when you think about long term, am I giving enough to be empty? Or do I need to adjust my focus? Do I need to give more? Do I need to focus on different things? Like, I give a lot, and I spend a lot of time volunteering and doing things with the family and putting, I love being creative in the household and cooking and activities and things like that. But maybe just ask if I'm on the right track to give everything that I can to this world. Also, if skinny jeans are coming back or not, because I'm
Should I save my skinny jeans? I really want to know. What will the fashion be?
this many blue jeans at home, and I'm like, okay, this might come back into style at one point in time.
I feel like that's such a differentiator of generations. It's like the mom jeans.
Not to joke about the question, but yes, I would have some fashion questions too.
Thank you, Brooke Huckabee, for being with us today. We had such a lovely conversation.
I enjoyed being here. Thank you so much.